There's a whole lot of information that we're going to be covering. It's very, very interesting as our brother John is being shown these symbols and these images. We'll be discussing these things. Brother Adam.
Our Lord, our God, our Father in heaven, we come before you so thankful for another opportunity to open up your word and to consider the words that you've written for your people. We pray, Lord, as we consider this apocalyptic book, we pray that you will help us to remember the overarching theme of it is victory. We're so thankful, Lord, that we can have hope in your victory. We're so thankful, Lord, that you have given us your word, that you have brought us this comfort. We pray, Lord, that you will help us to study it in a manner that is pleasing to you, that we will draw from it what you have intended us to learn and to understand. Help us to not twist the scriptures, but help us to follow the evidence where it leads. We pray all this in your Son, Jesus' name.
Amen. All right, I'm glad that prayer that Brother Adam brought up the word apocalyptic, and this was one of the words that we hadn't discussed in quite a while since we started in chapter 1. Again, what sort of images and things do you think about, or what does the world normally think about when they talk about the word apocalyptic?
Final war between good and evil.
Yeah, final war between good and evil. Something that is an apocalyptic event. That this is going to be an event of mass destruction. So, a terrible, terrible thing. But what does apocalyptic actually mean? Does anybody remember?
Revelation.
Yeah, a revealing, a revelation, and of course, just like much of what is written in the book of Ezekiel and in the book of Jeremiah and the sort, it uses apocalyptic language that uses a bunch of symbolism to convey a message or to convey a revealing. Last week we ended again in Revelation chapter 9. Just to jog your memory, and for anybody that hasn't been in this class, I want you to think about the beginning of Revelation chapter 8. What did John see at the beginning of Revelation chapter 8? What did he see? What's that? He saw that's right. That's right. He saw 7 angels, and what was given to the 7 angels? Trumpets. Okay? Did the trumpet, or did the angels just start sounding all their trumpets? They're given these trumpets, okay, and we think, okay, well, the angels are about to sound. Do they all just sound at the same time? No. What happens? Okay, so they begin to sound one at a time. In Revelation chapter 8. Tell me some things that begin to happen as each of the angels started to sound their trumpets. Look at verse 7. What did John see as the first angel sounded his trumpet?
Hail and fire.
Hey, that's right. Hail and fire mixed with blood. Okay, how about the second angel? What do we see in verse 8?
Great mountain burning with fire.
That's right. Okay, so chapter 10 or chapter 10, verse 10. The third angel sounds.
Great star fell from heaven.
That's right. Verse 12, the fourth angel. What happens?
Sun struck, the third moon, and the third star.
That's right. So we have the first 4 angels have sounded in Revelation chapter 8. We got into Revelation chapter 9 last week. At the beginning of this chapter, we see the fifth angel sound. And what happened when that 5th angel sounded his trumpet?
The stars fell from heaven to earth, and he gave peace to the bottom of the pit.
Yes, and we talked quite extensively about that. Verse 2 says he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke went up from out of the pit like smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the smoke of the pit. Then out from the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and power was given to them as scorpions of the earth have power. So do you think that this is literally talking about locusts?
No.
No, of course not. Why? Is there some sort of clue in this chapter that it's not talking about locusts? What do locusts do?
Oh, he's a plague.
Look at verse 4. They were told not to hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, nor any tree, but only the men who have the seal of God on their foreheads. If anybody has ever seen a locust or had a locust, held one, especially for anybody that's terrified of bugs, they're pretty terrifying. Are they in and of themselves dangerous? Will they hurt you?
No.
Well, they might bite you. It might bite you. Just an aside, I had a terrifying experience with one of these when I was a kid. I actually picked up one and held it, and it bit me, and it startled me, and I smacked it away. When I smacked it away, its head came off, and its head was still biting me. I freaked out, but I mean, as a kid, I thought that was terrible. Did it hurt me? No. But power was given to these locusts to hurt men. Okay, so we're not talking about a literal locust here. But only which men? Verse 4.
Those that had the seal on the forehead.
What's that?
Those that did not have
The ones that did not have the seal on their forehead. Okay. So in verse 5 it says, and they were not permitted to kill anyone, but to torment for 5 months, and their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings. And in those days men will seek death and will not find it. They will long to die, and death flees from them. The appearance of the locusts were like horses prepared for battle. Now in these verses here, we're getting a little bit of insight of what is being discussed. The appearance of the locusts were prepared. Were like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads appeared to be crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like the hair of women, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like a sound of rushing, or a sound of chariots rather, of many horses rushing to battle. And they have tails like scorpions and stings, and in their tails is the power to hurt men for how long? 5 months. Remember, whenever we're dealing with numbers here, numbers are not they're representative of things unless there's some other circumstance within the scriptures that would say that it was otherwise. Remember, we're dealing with numbers such as 3s, 6s, 5s, 7s, 10s, 7s and 10s in particular. 10 being representative of what? Power, or completeness. So what we see is a half of 10. It's not a complete period of time. Only a part of a time. And they have a king over them, the angel of the abyss, and his name in Hebrew is Abaddon. In the Greek, he has the name Apollyon. Okay, I think we talked about this a little bit. This word Abaddon is not the first time that is mentioned in Scripture. We talked about how this is a Hebrew word to describe a desolation, or a place of desolation, or a destroyer. Now, whether or not that this is a particular individual that's being talked about here, or maybe it's a motivating force that is driving this this vision that John is seeing here. We don't know, but But what is the overarching point that is being made here? What does a king do for armies?
Well, they're being led.
They're being led. That's right. They're being led. And again, whether or not that this is talking about a particular individual, a certain king, or maybe it's just destruction. Destruction is their motivating force. So in verse 12, it says that the first woe is past. Behold, 2 woes are still coming after these things. I want to remind you of what John had written in chapter 8 and verse 13. He says, "And I looked, and I heard an eagle flying in mid-heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth, because of the remaining blast of the trumpet of the 3 angels who are about to sound." So what is a woe? If somebody is saying woe, what are they trying to express?
Sorrow, despair.
That's right. That's right. And we're gonna see why it is that these beings would say such a thing, especially as we're getting to the end of this chapter here. So up until verse 12, we have the context of what happened during the sounding of which trumpet? The 5th trumpet. Now, from the end of this chapter on, we're going to be dealing with the 6th trumpet. We see it in verse 13. The 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before God. Remember we talked about this altar that was before God in Revelation chapter 8? From the 4 horns he heard a voice which is before God. One saying to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." Where? Considering, and of course we haven't talked too much about Rome, but we're going to find that Rome is going to be the major subject of the book of Revelation. Because they have become a great persecutor of God's people, of Christians. And God is not going to let this slide. God hears the voices and the cries of his martyrs. The Lord pays attention to those who are of his sealed. But we see here that again, if Rome is being the subject of God's judgment, where does anybody that might know anything about geography, where is the Euphrates River in relation to Rome? What's that? It's out in the Middle East. It's out in the Middle East. It's not even close. You're right. You're right. Now Rome, however, a lot of times we want to think about Rome as just Italy, but think about all of these surrounding regions surrounding Rome. Were they under the charge of Rome? How about the seven churches of Asia? Were they under the charge of Rome? Absolutely. And Adam's right. Adam's right. In relation to Rome, the Euphrates River is a faraway place, but it is. If anybody would look on a map, it is east of Rome. I know that we might be able to look back into Roman history and we see certain groups of people, certain armies and peoples standing up against Rome. And indeed, they come from the eastern direction, but taking what we see in history and just saying, okay, well this event in Revelation corresponds to this event in history, or in Revelation. I forget how I word that, but the point that's being made here is that we're conjecturing a little bit. We might be able to make good educated guesses, but we don't know for sure unless the Bible reveals specifically who these individuals are, or what sort of judgment is going to come upon Rome that is going to be from the eastern direction, or going to be from the Euphrates River. Sister Janice.
Not to put my ignorance on display, but the Babylon and the Persians and the Medes, are they gone by this time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I know that Revelation speaks of Babylon and all of this, so I'm thinking.
Okay. Yeah.
I was talking about geography and all this. I just remembered.
Yeah. Remember Nebuchadnezzar's statue.
Oh, yeah.
You have the Babylonians, and after the Babylonians follow the Medes and the Persians, and after the Medes and the Persians, the Greeks,
Yes.
and then after the Greeks, the Roman
So
Empire.
excuse me, that Revelation would be talking about mentioning Babylon. So.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm glad because what is, you're right. Revelation is going to talk about Babylon. What is Babylon at this point in time?
Ancient history.
You're right. They're ancient history, but Babylon. What is throughout the Old Testament? What is Babylon known for? Destruction and being the destroyers of God's people, the oppressors of God's people, and this sort of imagery is going to be applied for these first century Christians. What would Babylon mean for these first century Christians? We'll talk about that when we get to it. So it says one saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, release the four angels who are bound at the river Euphrates. So there are four angels that are bound. What does it mean that they are bound at the great river Euphrates?
They're just waiting.
They're being they're being restrained. They're being held back. They're being held back from what purpose? Destruction, judgment. They're being held back from their purpose, and that is destruction. What does this tell us that about God?
He has a plan.
He has a plan. You are exactly right. This is something that God had prepared for in advance. And so these four angels are being bound, they're being held back. And I want us to take a look at the next verse. And the four angels, look at this, who had been prepared for the hour and the day and the month and the year, they were released. They're released so that they would kill a third of mankind. During the sounding of the fifth trumpet, there were these individuals that were being released, but what were they not given the power to do?
Not to harm them. Certain
To,
parts.
not to kill. Now these four angels that are coming from the Euphrates River, coming from the east, they are being released so that they would kill a third of mankind. So a third. We're not talking about a literal third of mankind. It is symbolic. It just means a portion, but a significant portion. And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. And I heard the number of them. The number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. Okay, so we can see that what it is that was being restrained, that was coming from the east, are armies. How many? Does anybody have a different translation than me that gives?
I have about 200,000.
Mine says twice 10,000 times 10,000.
Okay. All right. So what's that? What was that? Twice 10,000. All right.
Times 10,000. Twice 10,000 times 10,000.
Okay. I hate to ask anybody to do some math here.
200 million.
200 million.
I suppose it's
That's
a
right.
different number.
Yeah, my translation actually does the math for me. but I think there's significance in the other translation. What would you say?
A sufficient number.
A sufficient number. Not only that, but again, we're seeing multiples of that number 10. That number 10, which again represents a fullness, which represents a completeness. So this army that is being released, the size of the army. How do we know that this is not a literal 200 million? How many people? What's the population of this country?
300.
About 300 million. There's about 300. If you add up the entire population of this entire country, men, women, and children, you're going to end up with 300 million. Now imagine an army the size of 2/3 of the population of the United States. China, the world's largest standing army, has an army of 2.2 million. What does this tell us about this number that is being used here? Whenever you think of numbers so large,
Total strength.
total strength. I'm thinking of like an overwhelming force. You're right. Total strength and an overwhelming force. And this is how I saw the vision of the horses and those who sat on them. The horses had breastplates the color of fire and hyacinth and of brimstone. What colors are those? What is brimstone? Anybody have a different translation?
Isn't it? Ash and fire.
Sapphire.
Fire ash.
Yes. Galatians chapter 19. Galatians chapter 19 in verse 24. What did God cause to rain upon Sodom and Gomorrah? Brimstone and fire. Brimstone and fire. And I looked up brimstone and basically what it is sulfur. Sulfur stone. If anybody has ever been to Yellowstone, you see a lot of brimstone in Yellowstone. You can just smell it. You go to a lot of these places, it just smells like a rotten egg. Just wherever you go, lots of brimstone, and that's the sulfur, and it's yellow in color. But it says of these armies that they're wearing the breastplates of red and of yellow. But I want you to think about the implication that's being used here. Whenever you're thinking of brimstone or sulfur and fire, that think things of a destructive nature. And the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths proceed fire and smoke and brimstone. So describe the horses. Describe the horses that these riders had that were coming from the east. The heads of lions from out of what came out of their mouths. Fire and brimstone. Again, is this talking about literal heads of lions and literally fire and brimstone? No. What is that? That's right. That's right. How would you feel if you saw a horse that literally looked like this? It would be something terrifying. It says a third of mankind was killed by these 3 plagues: the fire and the smoke and the brimstone which proceeded from their mouths. Destruction. Destruction is being talked about here. And fire and smoke and brimstone, again, we see in Genesis chapter 19. What are these articles being used to represent as they were used against Sodom and Gomorrah? Articles of judgment. Articles of judgment. And this is what spewed from their mouths, these plagues.
I have a question.
Yes.
It says that, like I said, it's spewed from the mouth. Could it be that the part of the destruction was the thing that they were saying or doing, or is this like the physical destruction if it spewed out of their mouth? You know what I'm saying?
Ask the question again.
It said that the fire and the smoke and the sulfur was coming out of their mouths, and it says that because the power was in their mouth.
Yeah.
Could it be that the destruction, part of the destruction was what they said and what they commanded and what they did, because
I never thought of that.
it was coming out of their mouth.
I never thought of that. But I don't have an answer for you. It could be. It could be, but I think the thing that we need to pull away from this is the fact that whatever proceeded from this army, it was because of judgment. It was an exercise of judgment. So destruction and hard times are coming for those that don't have the seal of God on their foreheads. So again, a lot of language being used to describe God's judgment. In Isaiah chapter 30, in Isaiah chapter 30 in verse 27, I want us to consider these passages here in light of what we are reading in the book of Revelation, and again, what this would mean to first century Christians. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 27, "Behold, the name of the Lord comes from a remote place. Burning is his anger, and dense is his smoke. His lips are filled with indignation." And of course, this is talking about judgment coming upon God's people from a remote place, from a faraway place. His breath is like an overflowing torrent which reaches to the neck to shake the nations back and forth in a sieve, and to put in the jaws of the peoples the bridles which leads to ruin. You will have songs in the night which when you keep the festival, and gladness of heart when one marches to the sound of the flute, to the mountain of the Lord, to the rock of Israel. The Lord will cause his voice of authority to be heard, and the descending of his arm to be seen in fierce anger, and in the fire of in the flame of a consuming fire. In a cloud burst, downpour and hailstones, for the voice of the Lord Assyria will be terrified when he strikes with the rod. And every blow of the rod of punishment, and of course I misspoke when concerning the subject of this judgment, which the Lord will lay on him, will be the music of tambourines and lyres, and in battles brandishing weapons he will fight them. For Topheth has long been ready. Indeed, it has been prepared for the king. He has made it deep and large, a pyre of fire with plenty of wood. The breath of the Lord, like a torment of brimstone, sets it afire. And again, a lot of imagery being used to describe God's judgment against nations. Revelation 9 and verse 19 says, "For the power of the horses is in their mouths and their tails, for their tails are like serpents and have heads, and with them they do harm." So we're about to close up Revelation chapter 9, but here's the awful thing. It's kind of like a spiritual revival in that nation. For Rome, something terrible is going to happen to Rome. But what about the people who were not killed by the plagues? The rest of mankind who were not killed by the plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, so as not to worship demons and the idols of gold, of silver, and of brass, and of stone, and of wood, which can neither see, nor hear, nor walk. And they did not repent of their murders, nor their sorceries, nor of the immorality, nor of their thefts. That is the sad thing that we see here. You know, as God is sending these judgments, what still is His desire?
To save them, that they repent.
That they would repent. That they would change. But even when such destruction is coming upon this nation, as far as their behaviors and their actions, nothing has changed. That is sad. That is sad. And I want you to think of some applications of that. Think of some applications. We might even know people in our lives who have experienced tragedy, or might have experienced a very scary event, or maybe even a near-death experience. And we think, well, for sure, after having this experience, this will get them to start thinking about spiritual things and start to get them to change their ways. And how sad and disappointed we are when nothing changes. So if nothing changes in the behavior of these folks, do you think that God's going to quit? Or do you think He's going to keep turning up the heat? Let's get into to chapter 10. We have about 10 minutes. Remember during the opening of the seals. We had the opening of the seals. The scroll was sealed up by how many seals? It was 7 seals, right? And then we had six seals that were open, and then we had a whole chapter, chapter 7, that was given to us where we'd expect that last seal to open up, but it didn't happen. Here's another situation where we're going to have a period of time. Chapter 7, of course, is oftentimes considered the interlude before the opening of the last seal. But now in this chapter here, we're going to see also an interlude between the 6th and the 7th trumpet. In verse 1, I saw another strong angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and the rainbow was upon his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book which was opened, and he placed his right foot on the sea, and his left on the land. In verse 3, and it says he cried out with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, the 7 peals of thunder uttered their voices. Describe this angel that John sees. What did he look like? He was strong.
Right, he was huge.
Yes, I was thinking something that'd be huge, massive. What did he wear?
Cloud.
A cloud. What was on his head?
Rainbow.
A rainbow. Okay. How was his face shining?
Sun.
Like the sun. Okay. Tell me about his feet.
Pillars of fire.
His feet were like pillars of fire. What did he have?
Scroll.
Yep. He had. My translation says he had a little book. Okay, where was his feet?
One on the earth and one on
on land.
Yes, one on the earth, one on the sea. In other words, one on the land and one in the water. What the culmination of all of these descriptions? What do you think about this angel?
He might have been
Revelation 1,
water.
we talk about Jesus in similar manners. So, I don't know if there's a correlation there.
Revelation chapter 1 and verse 16. Considering the Lord Jesus, it says, in his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth came a sharp 2-edged sword, and his face was like the sun shining in strength. What about this rainbow? We've talked about a rainbow before, right?
God's covenant with mankind.
Yes.
His promise.
Yes. But where was this rainbow?
On his head. Over his head.
Over the throne? Over the throne of God? How about a feet like pillars of fire? Think of some Old Testament references of pillars of fire. What do you think of?
When the Exodus, when the Jews were marching and they had a pillar of fire to guide them.
That's right. Well, there was a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night. That's right. So, in Ezekiel chapter 1, and going back to this rainbow, this idea of a rainbow and this glorious appearance of this strong angel. In Ezekiel chapter 1 and verse 28, as Ezekiel was talking about the throne of the Lord and the appearance of the Lord, it says, as the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard a voice speaking. So consider Ezekiel's response to the vision that he saw. What would be your response to seeing such an image? I would be absolutely overwhelmed, just absolutely overwhelmed of beauty, power, majesty, strength, all of these things, all these things, and I find it interesting too that considering how this angel was described was also things that describe things of the Lord. Again, think about that pillar of fire. Think about the radiant face, the brightness of the face, like the sun shining in full strength. The appearance of the rainbow, being clothed with the clouds, just awesome. I mean, I'm not talking about it in the sense that people use the word awesome today. It's in its purest form, awesome, just awe-inspiring. Just sharing.
In Revelation 9, we have this picture of total destruction. It's darkness, it's death, it's terror.
Yeah.
And when we come into 10, it's like coming out of the dark into the night light. It's hope, it's beauty, it's our hope of the better things to come. It's like a total opposite of each other.
Now, it would mean that depending upon your spiritual situation.
Right.
For Christians, what does this mean? What would this mean to you as a Christian?
Final judgment.
What's that?
Final judgment.
Final judgment? No. I mean, think about the power of this angel. Those that have the seal of God on their foreheads. What would images like this mean to them? Who is on their side?
Yeah.
If I was going to choose a side, I would want to be on this one's side, right? But for those that do not have the seal of God on their foreheads, for those that have not repented of their idolatry, their murders, their thefts, their wickedness, what do these images mean? Terror. And of course, depending upon your spiritual condition, this could be one of two things. But again, what did this angel have in his hand? Yes, he had a little book. Describe the little book.
It was open.
It was open. Okay. What does that mean? What's that? There was no seal. It was open. Okay. Before, John saw a scroll in the right hand of the Lord, and he was upset. Why? Because it was sealed up. In other words, the things in it haven't been revealed, haven't been shown. It's quite different than this book. This book is open. And an open book, an open revelation is being given to John. Sister Janice, and then Wendy.
Also, Daniel, there was a book, and it was sealed up.
That's right.
And that means that the things that were in the book, it was not to take place yet.
That's right. That's right. I actually had that in my notes too. But I'm glad that you brought that up.
And now the 10 is open, so that means the things will be taking place soon. It's not like we're going to wait a little bit. This is going to happen now.
That's right. That's right. So it said. Oh, Sister Wendy, go ahead.
So this isn't the same book that was sealed in Revelation 5,
No.
right? Not okay.
No, it is not. And it says that he cried out with a loud voice as when a lion roars, and when he cried out, the seven peals of thunder uttered their voices. And again, depending upon your spiritual condition, this could be a couple of things. One, it could be a source of great comfort. But for those that aren't spiritually right, how does the sound of a lion roaring? What would that do? Anybody heard a lion roar? I'm not talking about the lion roar that they have at the end of movies. Has anybody been to the zoo and seen the lions? Seen the lions at the...
Absolutely to death.
What's that?
It would scare me absolutely senseless.
I went to the zoo in San Francisco, and I've seen other lions at zoos, but it was during a time when they were feeding the lions. You go see the feeding of the lions, and they put out this meat and you're at this cage, and you're just so close to the lion, it almost feels like you can reach out and touch it. The lion comes out to come and eat, and it was the first time that I heard it in real life and up close. But this lion roared, and I was floored. It terrified. It shocked me. It shocked me when I heard it. You know, we hear it on television, see it in the movies and all that kind of stuff. Hearing it in real life, there is no comparison. There is no comparison. And when this angel sounded, it was like the roar of lions. And again, for anybody who's ever heard one in real life, it's a terrifying sound. And when he cried out, the 7 peals of thunder uttered their voice. So we hear the lion roars, 7 peals of thunder. You know what? When the Lord spoke, Exodus chapter 19 and verse 9, it says, when the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with a thunder. With a thunder. And it says in Exodus 20 and verse 18, and all the people when all the people perceived the thunder and the lightning flashes and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, when the people saw it, they trembled, and they stood at a distance. All of these things, all these imageries, and all of these sounds that John is hearing, what should we be walking away with concerning this strong angel? A majestic yet terrifying presence.
We're supposed to pay attention.
Pay attention. You are exactly right. Okay, we'll end there. We'll pick it up talking about the strong angel, and in particular this little book that the angel gives to John. And what does the angel tell John to do with this little book?
Eat it.
Eat it. Okay. Think about that. Dwell on that. What a thing to do. Eat the little book. What is that all about?